we go.
Got it.
No, got it. Welcome, everybody. My name is Joanne Ewell, and I'm the 11th and 12th grade counselor at Mount St. Mary Academy. And it's my pleasure today to introduce and invite Claire Nold-Glaser to our program about junior college admission process and starting that. And Claire is an independent counselor out of the Seattle, Washington area. And I've known Claire almost my whole life. And have worked with her at summer camps when we were growing up, and then have worked with her professionally for about 20 years on and off as I've been in and out of school counseling. And she is here to talk to us about how to get our juniors started in the college process. So I'm going to welcome Claire to our chat.
All right. There you
go. A little disclaimer
video.
that we did this yesterday and I somehow didn't get the recording started. So here we are again, Claire. Thanks for
Very good. Well, thank you so much for having me, Joanne. It's really, it's fun. It's like a gift of COVID. It's like I've never presented to a school group in Buffalo, New York ever before. So this is a nice opportunity to be able to do that. So thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it. So maybe give us a little bit of background about how you started working as an independent counselor, and then let's just jump right in.
Yeah, great. Well, amazingly enough, this spring is going to be my 20th year as an independent counselor. And prior to that, I was a school counselor for 15 years. And as we joked yesterday, it's like, how can that be since we're only 32? But yeah, I love guiding students through the college process. And it's amazing to be doing this work for so long, but still learning and learning and learning and learning, every year, different schools, different changes to admissions. Of course, the whole effect of the pandemic has been a really interesting thing, but I love it. It's so much fun. And I always talk to students about, sometimes the media likes to pick up stories of like, oh, it's so stressful and it's so hard. And parents sometimes say it's so different, than when I was applying to college. And really, it's not,
Yeah.
And so I like to help people, just kind of calm down and realize that it's not that much different. People want you to think that it is, so you have anxiety. But whenever you as students or as parents, have questions about what's going on in the college process, the first person that you should turn to is Miss Ewell, because she knows, and she's been doing this for a long time as well. Right. She's a very good font of information. I do have 2 books that I want to recommend that I feel like they're more intended for parents, because students are busy reading their school book. Well, they should be busy.
They should be, that's right.
Right. But the first book that I want to share is this book called The Truth About College Admission. And then you can see the subtitle is A Family Guide to Getting In and Staying Together. And this book is written by Brennan Barnard, who is a high school counselor, and then Rick Clark, who's the Dean of Admissions at Georgia Tech. And both of them are wonderful people. And Rick Clark also has a blog. If you just probably Google Georgia Tech admission blog, Rick Clark, you'll find it. It's a very good blog about college admissions. And his last 2 entries are about things parents should know about college admissions. So anyway, this is a great book. And there's also a workbook that accompanies this that I don't have, but I've heard from other people that that's a helpful resource as well. And then the other book to recommend right now is this one called The College Conversation. And it says, a practical companion for parents to guide their children along the path to higher education. And Eric Furta is from the University of Pennsylvania, and Jock Steinberg, one of the other authors, is with the New York Times. And I know Jock, and he's a very good person and not into the hysteria,
Yeah.
of admission. So those are two great books,
That's
for
great,
parents.
Claire. Yeah, thank you for that. Because I know as a parent, I tend to want to grab a book and sit and read through to try to figure out what's going on. So thank you for that. That's
Yeah,
great.
and speaking of that, and I don't have the book here. There's another book that is not specifically about the college process, but it's called How to Raise an Adult by
Mm-hmm.
Julie Lithcott Haynes. And that is it's a book that I wish every parent, if you have kids that are like age like 5 and older,
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say read that book. And it really, she doesn't have a shaming tone of like, you are a bad parent if you do this, but she talks about how can we as parents enable our children to kind of grow into themselves, to take responsibility, to grow into adulthood. And again, the title of that book is How to Raise an Adult.
It's great. Yeah, I read that a few years ago, and I think it's time to revisit
Yeah.
as I have children moving into the high school years myself. So
Yes,
thanks for
yes,
that. That's great.
yes,
All right.
exactly.
So let's say I have a student who's a junior or a sophomore, and that'll be me in a couple of years. Like, what do you think are the first things that that I, as a parent, should be doing with my kid?
Yep, great. So I'm sharing my screen with you right now. And this FISC Sizing Yourself Up survey, I think, is a really good starting place. And this is a survey that comes from this book. And I'm going to talk to you more about this in just a few minutes. But in this survey, so if you just Google Sizing Yourself Up survey, and I think Miss Yule is going to provide links to all of these, but you can see these questions. So you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 with every item.
Okay.
So some have to do with size, some have to do with location, some have to do with academics and extracurriculars. And then it talks about how your scores work. And then what I also like is FISC has some comments. So if I gave number one, like an 8 or a 9 or a 10, I enjoy participating in many activities. That's important to me. Then his comment is students at small colleges tend to have more opportunities to be involved in many activities. Fewer students means less competition for spots. So I like that, because it helps kind of give me a perspective of like, okay, so if I score this high or however I score it, what are the implications of that?
Right. Kind of frames it for the student, right? And gives them an
Yeah,
idea of what they might be looking for.
exactly right. And so one thing that juniors might like to do, and parents of juniors might like to do, is, I'm old, so I print things out. So I'm like, print this out and have the junior respond to the survey, and then have the parent respond to the survey as they think their child is going to
Yeah.
respond,
Yeah.
and then sit down together and compare your answers. So it's a really good, let's kind of begin this conversation.
Yeah, it's a great exercise. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's fun. And sometimes students have a hard time getting started in this process. And I think a lot of that is because they don't know. And sometimes they feel like they're supposed to know. And I reassure students all the time. It's like, how can you know what you want to study in college when really all you've had so far in your life is English, math, science, social studies, world language, a
Right.
little bit of religion, a little bit of PE, a little bit of art, kind of thing. But I don't want students to feel like they totally have to know what they're going to be when they grow up, or what they're going to study in college when they're 16, 17, 18 years old.
Right.
But I think as a society, it's very typical that adults ask people that age, where are you going to college and what are you going to study? And I just think we don't need to get into that yet. I want kids to have the opportunity to explore their options. And when they are researching colleges, I think that's a very good question to ask, when do I need to declare my major?
Mhm.
Because there are some majors like engineering,
Right.
or direct admit nursing that you do have to get into, your first year of college.
So true.
So yeah, so I wanted to go back and just talk to you about this book because
Great.
this is a really good guide as well. And you can see I have the 2021 version, and they don't change that much from year to year. So if you have a local used bookstore that you can go to, I'm sure you'll be able to find some of these. And what it has, every college in the nation is not in this book, but there are a lot of schools in this book. And if I just kind of randomly I opened up to the University of Delaware, which starts right here. And then it goes, so they're like 2.5 pages of a description of the school. And they talk about, like the geographic setting, maybe some things that the school's known for, academics, residence life, activities, the town or the city where the school is located. So what I have my juniors do is I have them get the book, and then they also get 2 different colored highlighters.
Nice.
And one college is the designated, oh, I like that, as I'm reading about the school, highlight things that I like. And then the other color is, that doesn't really sound, this school has bad food. It's like, oh, that gets, that is not a good thing. But it's amazing. And I've been having students do that activity for years.
Yeah.
And it seems so silly, to have a hard copy book and the magic highlighters. But just the other day, I had one of my juniors say, I really like doing that. And what happens is students start to discover trends of preferences that they have for different things related to colleges as well.
That's great. And I have a question about that as well. Do you have them go through the whole book, or do you have them look at certain schools that they're
Yeah.
already thinking about, or, oh, I heard about this place?
Yeah, great question. So no, I don't, I don't have them read
Too
the
big, right? How would you do that?
Right. Because there's I feel like there's over 300 colleges, in here. And he has some criteria at the beginning of the book of index by price. So schools that are more expensive to schools that are, indexed by average debt. And then he'll talk about there's the Sizing Yourself Up survey. And then he has a list of schools that are in here, like private universities strong in architecture, large private universities strong in business. So he has some suggestions as well.
Okay.
But a tool that I use a lot with my students is this College Navigator website. And this is brought to us by the US Department of Education. So the only time this ever goes away is if there's a government shutdown, which, fortunately doesn't happen very often. But one of the things that I like about this website is that schools cannot buy their way onto the students list, where sometimes there's private companies that have search engines where students can do this. But so what happens is you can click on, a whole geographic region. Of course, we need to include Washington because that's where I am. And Miss Yule moved from Montana, and Minnesota and Wisconsin has similar weather. And then we're going to say browse for programs. And so I'm going to click psychology, but I'm not going to put in the whole category because some of these areas of psychology are really specific that you don't study until like graduate school or PhD. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to select psychology general.
Great.
And then I'm also going to say, oh, I have to be able to spell to do this. Business. And again, you can see there's a whole category of 106 different flavors of business. Right. Don't do that. I'm going to hit business administration and management general. Right. And so then I'm going to close that. But before I close, there's also this box that I like to check for the fun of it to say, only find schools that offer all of these selections. I'm going to leave that unchecked for
Okay.
now, and then you're going to say bachelor's degree at a public or a private nonprofit 4-year school. Then you click more search options and you can set fees, tuition and fees, although I don't do that initially because
Right.
I just want to see what schools are there. And then there's a whole conversation about, do they offer scholarships? And
Right.
that's another presentation. And then you can say, you know, how small of a school would you consider or be comfortable to how large of a school? I want there to be housing because I want to live on campus at least my first year.
Right.
And then if you have a preference, you can, when you click on the question mark, you can see what the campus setting definitions are. And then percent of applicants admitted, I'm going to say 40 to 90%. I'm not going to put in any scores.
Okay.
If you require that there's a particular sports team, you can put that in, and then you hit show results. And we generated a list, or it generated a list of 153 colleges.
Wow. Yeah.
So the first thing that I have students do is click that save icon there and put in their email address, and then they'll get a link so they can come back to this and not have to repopulate the fields on the left-hand side of the screen all the time.
And we
And
should also
then-
maybe put a little plug for setting up an email address at this time.
Oh,
Right?
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
that's something we talked about yesterday.
It was.
But I really encourage students to set up a separate email address just for college stuff.
Mhm.
So if you take a standardized test, if you go to a college fair, if you meet with a college rep who's visiting your school, anytime where you're going to be interacting with college, use that email address, because all the marketing can go there.
Right.
And then when you're done with your process and you know where you're going to school, you can just shut that email address down.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to this, I'm going to click on Binghamton University because probably a lot of you are familiar with that school. And so when you click on the name of the school, you can see there's a lot, all of these little plus signs you can open up. So I like to look at admissions. So this is the most recent data is for people who started school in fall of 2020.
Mhm.
And this tells us that Binghamton admitted 43% of all the students who applied for that class. And then we're going to scroll down, and I like to see the retention rate is the percentage of first year students who come back for their second year.
Right.
And I say to my students, 80% and above is
Yep.
great. If it's lower than 80%, just ask the admissions person, why people aren't coming back. And then when we look at the graduation rate, so the blue bar there is the people who started college in the fall of 2014. So that's the most recent data.
Right.
A 72% four-year graduation rate
Wow.
is significantly higher than the national average,
Right.
which is between 50 and 55%. So that is wonderful.
Yeah.
And then as I scroll down, another thing, I mean, there's so many good things in here to look at, but then you can see programs and majors, and anything that I said that I was interested in studying is going to be highlighted in yellow. And so this tells me that Binghamton gave 65 degrees in business administration management general in 2020, 200 master's degrees.
Wow.
And let's see if they have psychology as a major. And they do. They gave out 306 bachelor's degrees in psychology. So this is kind of a fun thing because a lot of times, again, students don't know for sure what they want to study. So it's neat to see, what this particular school gave.
Yeah. And it's just right there. It's all the numbers and the data and just plugging things in and taking a look through, which is fantastic. Yeah.
So I really, like I keep saying, I really like this website because there's just so much good information in there.
Right.
And then another website that's interesting is this one called College Express.
Okay.
And this is a website you can see like my name and email addresses there. So you do have to, they let you click in a little bit and then it's like, you got to sign up for an account,
Right.
which you would use your college, email address like we talked
Right.
about on this. And this website is based on this book called The College Finder. And this book is nothing but lists and lists and lists. So if I open it up, the Expert's Choice Excellent Mathematics Programs, and there's a big list. Colleges with great sustainability programs, colleges with great television stations. I mean, this is like lists and lists and lists,
Wow.
like I said.
Yeah, that's great.
And when you go here, when I click on lists and rankings,
Mhm.
you can see you can search by all these different categories here. And I'm going to click on majors. And then there's this drop down list where if I click on psychology, because that was something in the College Navigator that I said I was interested in,
Right.
then I can click on both of these areas. And now I'm going to get a list of colleges that are particularly strong in psychology. And so you can see this list, lots of different colleges.
Right.
And I'm going to click on, let's see, I'm going to click on Clark. That's a school. There's some kind of trivia where it's the only college that Sigmund Freud gave a talk.
Oh, interesting.
Some psychology
Yeah.
trivia. But what I like about this is, so it opens up, a lot of different data points here.
Mhm.
But what I like is, weirdest college traditions.
Nice.
When I click on more lists and rankings, it tells me what other lists in that book this school is on.
Oh, nice.
So best student to faculty ratios, excellent colleges in or near Boston. It's one of the colleges that changed lives, which is a wonderful book that has a bunch of great schools in it. Colleges with strength in snowboarding. So when you click on any of these, then it's the rabbit hole.
Right, that you get right down into.
Right, exactly right. Takes you to another list. And you can also type in names of colleges on this website as well to see what list schools that you're considering are on as well.
That's great.
So it's a time suck. I'll just tell you that.
The kind of thing that parents love looking at, right? And
Yeah.
imagine, for their kids. I do it all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I would suggest is participating in virtual college fairs.
Mhm.
Of course, in-person college fairs will come back, but this is what I know for sure, right now.
Right.
And so NACAC is the National Association for College Admission Counseling, which is it's actually an international organization. And when you go on this particular website, you can see the virtual spring college fair schedule. And you can see that some of them are on Sunday, some of them are during the week. For my kids out west, these Eastern Standard Times during the week, don't work. So
they don't. No.
Yeah, but when you click on the date of a fair, then what happens is it takes you to obviously to this site. And so then I'm going to click here, virtual college fair. I'm going to click to register. And this is another time where I would use that email address.
Right.
And when I scroll down, I'm going to be able to see a list of the colleges that are registered to be in attendance at this particular virtual college fair.
That's great.
And there's hundreds of colleges.
A lot.
And then what NACAC has done is they've partnered with a vendor who, when you sign up to register for this college fair, you have the option to put in some attributes of schools that, attributes that you're thinking, that's appealing to me right now. And then when you register, you'll be able to see which schools are your best matches that are going to be at that particular college fair. So it's really nice because it's like, instead of trying to figure out, of these hundreds of schools, this kind of gives you a head start on that. And so it's a new feature, and it's going really well according to the people that have set it up.
Yeah, I've heard people really like it. And can you maybe just briefly describe like what happens when you log into the virtual fair and how that works?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and there is on this website, they have some good information, including this video. This is it's like a 1.5 minute or 2 minute video, and it shows students and whoever registers, parents, kind of the dashboard, the homepage of what you're going to see when you log in, and where you can kind of click on different aspects of information. Students have the possibility to just kind of lurk in a college's booth, is what they call them. If they just kind of want to watch and listen to questions that students are asking, they can do that. If they want to engage and ask questions themselves, they can do that as well. And when you look at that, reminded me of when you think about what questions, should I be asking, this website. So this is the National Survey of Student Engagement, is what NSSE stands for. And if we were talking to each other in person, if we were in the library at school,
that's right,
I would hand out one of these little brochures to everybody that has a lot of different questions, and there's the people there, the people on the screen.
Right.
Yep. And when you scroll down, you can see these 5 different categories. When you click on academics, here are some sample questions related to academics. Same, learning with peers, experiences with faculty, rich educational opportunities, and the campus environment. So these are good if you're like, well, I don't know what to ask.
Right.
And one question that you never want to ask is, what majors do you have?
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, let me give you a list of 150 areas of study. You can say, tell me about the strengths of your psychology program.
Yeah.
What kind of research opportunities are there in psychology at your school? Because a lot of times academic areas of study can be pretty similar from one college to the next. But research and research opportunities, maybe you're really interested in studying autism in young children, and you find a school that's conducting research in that, or Alzheimer's, or there's thousands of different things that people are researching, and that can be a differentiator of schools as well.
Sure. And the last thing is say a student wants to attend a virtual fair, what's the parent's role in that? And can they sit with the student? Do you encourage that? Because a lot of the times if they were going to a fair with their parents would be around the booth as well. So
yes. Yeah, absolutely. If the student and the parent, if the student wants the parent to sit there with them, great. Sure. But I really think it's good to, as a parent, look at the site, understand what's going on, but let your child be the one who's asking the questions, either verbally or typing them in. Because again, we want to empower our students to be able to do good research.
Right.
Parents can also register to attend the college fair as well. And that's totally fine if people want to be in different spaces and, sure, looking at the fairs. Yeah. And, kind of along the virtual line of thinking, now another gift of the pandemic, that kind of feels like an oxymoron to say that, but, a gift of the pandemic has been that colleges have virtual information sessions that you can sign up for and attend. And they also have virtual tours. And a lot of the virtual tours are pre-recorded and on the college's website. but it's like ways to bring this more to life
Right.
instead of, only
Right.
reading about a school.
Yeah, it's amazing in the last, I mean, it was moving that way anyway, right? With colleges and websites, but in the last couple of years, all of everything that embedded in a college website now is really
Yeah.
helpful in the
Yeah.
admissions side of it.
And Miss Yule, one of the things that you and I talked about yesterday was, again, if you're in that position of like, I don't know what I want, big or small, or research or sports, or whatever, getting on college campuses is a fabulous thing. And you talked yesterday about how many different schools there are really in close proximity to Buffalo.
Yeah,
So even though if a student is like, well, I don't want to stay close to home, it's like, that's totally fine.
right.
But you
Let's
can,
get on a campus and see what a school the size of a Canisius or a Niagara or Buff State or UB, like get on there because they're going to have similar feels to ones around the country,
right.
right? And walking
Yeah,
around and getting a feel for what happens on a weekday or weekend around campus is really,
makes a
really
difference.
valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember another thing we talked about. We're doing
I
this.
know, it's good we're doing it again.
It's better. It's better. But one of the other things that we talked about yesterday too is, Buffalo is even closer to Canada
Mhm.
than where I am located, but I'm probably like 3 hours, to the Canadian border.
Right.
And both of my kids did all or part of their undergraduate work in Canada. My son even did his master's in Canada, and we're not Canadian people,
Yep.
but it was really a wonderful thing to be able to have that northern, those, when I meet with families, I'm like, we're talking about geographic location, and I'm like, how about that state to the north? And they look at me
Right.
like, what are you talking? I'm like, British Columbia, woo, but it was really great for them, and it was affordable because of the exchange rate. And so, when I got the financial aid, or you're going to be able to pay this much money, after I picked myself up off the floor, then I went online to the currency converter, and it's like, this is comparable to a public university, in the state of Washington, where I'm located. So
Yeah.
don't forget to look across it. And it's so easy to get student visas, and you get a work permit at the same time as you get your student visa, so you can work on or off campus. And it was good.
That's
I'm
great
happy.
advice. Yeah. And I mean, I'm obviously new to Buffalo, but there are a number of students who do travel in normal pre-COVID times, would come
Right.
across the border to commute into
Buffalo.
Buffalo for schools. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, but it's good advice to don't limit yourself to everything south,
Right. Of the
look
border.
north as well. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, we got one more thing to talk about before we wrap up, and that's standardized testing,
Right.
because it's always changing and evolving,
Right.
and so I'll let you start, and then I'll hop in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. And I'm going to go back to sharing my screen
great.
one more time. So, basically, uh, there are so many more schools that are test optional now. And this is a website, it's called fairtest.org. And the person that runs this website, Bob Schaefer, he does a really good job of keeping this current. Um, and gosh, I think I actually saw in my news feed this morning that the University of Pennsylvania has said that they're going to continue to be test
I
optional.
saw that as well. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
just every day. Yeah.
so you can see this list is, almost 2,000 schools that are test optional. And when you go back up, there is, oh gosh, shoot. There was another link that talks about, oh gosh, I'm clicking on the wrong thing.
Was it the
But
chronology one? I think I saw it on that previous
yes,
page. If you go
was
back
it on
a
the
page.
previous
Yeah,
page? Okay.
scroll down just a
Yes,
little
yes,
bit. Yep,
yes,
there we
yes,
go.
right here. Yep. And so I like this because this shows it's a list of schools that have been, that have, like when the test optional movement started in 2005, it shows schools that were early adopters of test optional. I got the sun shining in my face.
See that? It's beautiful. In Seattle? Are you kidding me?
There. Okay, I'll go back here in the shadows. But anyway, what as far as the whole test optional, do you take the test? Do you not take the test? One of the things that I've been doing is just asking my students, do you love taking standardized tests? Do you feel like, does it bring you joy in your life? And if students say, no, I can't stand standardized tests, that's probably because they don't do very well on them. And colleges have been really clear, like, Miss Yule and I have sat in on, many webinars, listening to colleges talk about this.
Right.
And what they're consistently saying is standardized test scores have never been a huge thing, but now they're even going even more on the decline.
Yep.
And they also say that they're more interested in admitting interesting students,
Right.
and not necessarily kids that have sat for hours and hours doing Khan Academy or a test prep class, to boost their scores.
Right.
So I think it's better to, have a job, be involved in clubs and activities at school, do community service, be involved in sport, whatever it is.
Right.
Or sometimes I meet kids that, they're like really awesome nerds about a particular subject. I'm working with a student right now who's a senior, and he is, there's a word for it that he taught me. He loves flags, which leads to his interest in economics and politics across the world.
Wow.
But primarily in like the sort of the area of Eastern Europe.
Oh,
and it's
neat.
like, I listen to this kid and he is so dang smart. But see, that makes him an interesting person.
Sure.
So pursuing your development as a person is more important than prepping for standardized tests.
Right.
If you feel like, standardized tests have been a part of our culture for a long, long time. So if you feel like you just really want to take the test just to see, that's okay. That's okay to do that. Just because you take the test doesn't mean you have to submit your scores.
That's right.
And once you have your scores, then I think you talk with Miss Yule about, colleges that you're thinking about and whether you should or should not submit those scores.
Right. And I think, and I think along that vein, there are still schools that do require them.
Right.
There
Schools
are
in the state of Florida and schools in the state of Georgia, public schools.
Right. That's still, requiring them. There are some programs, still some nursing direct admit programs that are hanging on a little bit.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes, no, so it's, I think there's still some, but I think most have gone, especially during COVID, to being test optional. And our SUNY system just came out in the last 2 weeks with a statement saying they're going to remain test optional for this next upcoming cohort of students. So, so students definitely shouldn't feel like they have to take the test. But it might be an individual decision. They certainly can come talk to me, and parents can come talk to me. And we can talk about the reasons why maybe you would take them or maybe not. I think we're going to see more and more continue to remain test optional permanently. I just think that's the way we're going.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah. Well, Claire, oh my gosh, 2 days in a row. Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for having me, Miss Yule. And I wish all of you students the best in this process. It's an amazing time of self-discovery, and there's a lot of great tools out there to help you in your process.
I just so appreciate you and the wisdom that you have in this area. And you've always been such a great resource for me as I keep moving further east from Seattle on my journey. And I just really, really do appreciate your time. So thank you
Great,
so very much. And
great, great.
hopefully we'll do it again. All right, I'm
Sounds
going to
good.
stop the recording here.